So today we're going to be spiritually analyzing Donald J. Trump. Of course, you already know who he is. That's why you clicked on this video. One of the most, if not the most, polarizing public figure in America, in the world, in the last century, is the man that happens to be president of the United States currently. So, to understand Donald Trump on a soul level, on the deepest level, we're going to first start with his psychology. We're then going to go to the astrology and finally end with the alchemy, the transformation process he is meant to undergo in this incarnation. I don't know if he's really done anything to go through that transformation process, but I make the video anyway because it's entertaining and also informative if you can relate to him in a certain way. So, first, the main thing that we all know about Donald Trump is that he is service to self. Some would call it narcissistic, egotistical, self-centered, self-absorbed, egomaniacal. There's many different ways to put it, but to keep it simple and not use these DSM-5 labels, but to just get straight to the point, Donald Trump is all about servicing himself. Whether that's the people around him, closest to him, that are loyal to him, the people he cares about, or the people he doesn't care about, but do things for him, he's fully focused on making sure that every action he does, every thought that he thinks, is in service of his individualized ego. And this creates a very dangerous person when you give them a lot of power, because they're going to try to suck as much energy, attention, power, channel it towards themselves and concentrate it as close to them as possible without giving it to anybody else. Because giving other people power, autonomy, energy, attention is serving them. And as we've just stated, his main goal is serving himself. He doesn't care if it's at the expense of others. It could also benefit others. He doesn't care as long as he is benefiting. And this is very, very apparent with his diplomatic actions on the world stage with other countries, with tariffs, with the economy, with conflict, with Iran and Israel. So this shouldn't come to a surprise to anyone watching this video. Instinct-driven. I look at Donald Trump almost like a force of nature. He is supremely unconscious and flows through life purely based on vibes and instinct. He just sees something and reacts to it. Or he has a vision and he moves toward it. He's not aware if he's trampling over people or destroying things on his way to get to his desired goal, wherever he wants to go. He just knows that he wants to get there. And then he starts moving there. And people just crumble in his wake. And they might scream and they might yell in the process. They might resist the best they can. But like a bulldozer who is a force of nature, he just mows over anyone in his path. It's not calculated. It's not cerebral. It's not maniacal or conniving. He is just, like I said, he's like a tornado or a hurricane that just moves through space to get from point A to point B. And by God, he's good at getting to point B, right? I mean, the stuff that he's accomplished, it's impressive. And as much as we can criticize him for the many valid things he deserves to be criticized for, we also have to be able to understand that he is a powerful force of nature that nobody has been able to stop up until this point. People have tried, but he is just relentless. And also another way of saying he is relentless. And that's because he's unconscious. If he was too much in his head, if he was too calculated, too thoughtful, too cerebral or conscious or self-aware, he would be second-guessing himself. But there is not an ounce of self-doubt or, there's insecurity, but that's different. Self-doubt or second thoughts. It is unified. He is aligned in his desires of when I want something, I go and get it. And every part of his being is on the same path towards that goal. We could all take a note from that, of his internal alignment But the downside is that he's very delusional and separate from reality because he's purely subjective in his perspective. As much as he would disagree with this statement, there is not an ounce of objectivity in that man. Everything he sees is from his limited point of view, his perspective. And he perceives the world as objective, meaning he doesn't realize that what he sees is completely different than what most people see. What he sees is fact, what he says is law, it is what it is, and I say what it is in Donald Trump's mind. So when people say, hey, you're lying, or that didn't happen, and he clearly says something that's contrary to reality, even the reality he may have created before, he's not making the connection. He believes he's telling the truth. He believes his own bullshit because he's purely subjective, coming from his own limited perspective and seeing nothing outside of his blinders, his vision. He's a fascinating specimen, to be honest. And if he wasn't so powerful and president of the United States, I would find him far more amusing and enjoyable to observe, but I digress. This is what America has chosen. And also, what you need to understand too is as the figurehead of America, when it comes to the psychology, the astrology, and the alchemy, America is very similar on a macro scale because every leader of a nation or a country is a karmic figurehead and a symbolic representation of the flow, the energy movement of the collective unconscious. So a lot of the things that I say in this video about Donald Trump can also be applied to America, the United States, on a macro level. Fascinating stuff. Okay, now let's go to the fun part, the juicy part, the astrology of Donald Trump. So most important in everyone's chart is the south node, Ketu, and the north node, Rahu. So for Donald Trump, you're gonna have your Rahu in Sun, your north node in Gemini, and then Ketu, south node, with the moon in Sagittarius in his 5th house. So 5th house, 11th house, right? Now the south node is where we are most karmically secure. It's our spiritual, energetic comfort zone where we've spent many lifetimes working out this area of our charts. Rahu, the north node, is where we need to go in this incarnation, the part of the chart, the area of the chart that needs to be developed in this incarnation. So we'll start with the south node, which is in Sagittarius in the 5th house, with the moon. So what you'll notice too, which is rare for people, is that because Rahu and Ketu are with the sun and the moon, that means Donald J. Trump was born during an eclipse. So I think it would have been a solar eclipse. No, it would have been a lunar eclipse because the moon was full. So it would have been a lunar eclipse. So the moon is eclipsing the sun. So he was born right near, if not on the day of an eclipse. This makes him extremely polarizing and extremely magnetic and extremely powerful because the moon and the sun are being blocked out by the south node and the north node, which is not common. Most people do not have this planetary configuration of both Rahu and Ketu blocking out the sun and the moon. So this is where he gets his force of nature energy. Being born during an eclipse is like a fated event. And that's part of the reason why a lot of things that happened to Donald Trump seems fated, almost like it's in a movie. Like the assassination attempt, the fact that it missed by this much feels fated, almost feels like God was protecting him or something was happening. So him being born during an eclipse means that he has a certain karmic duty or destiny in this incarnation. As much as we like to look at Donald Trump and blame him for the problems, to be honest, what he's really doing is he's just fulfilling the karmic duty, the karmic retribution, the karmic lessons humanity as a whole needs to learn. It's almost like don't shoot the messenger, no pun intended. He's just carrying out the playbook, but the story has been written up there. He's just helping manifest it. And he's been chosen, you can tell from this eclipse birth. So a Ketu moon conjunction in the 5th house means that we have the 5th house, which is our self-expression, our creativity, our romance, and I think I already said, did I say creativity? Children as well. And then the moon is our emotions and the way that we perceive the world. It's actually our subjective experience. So Ketu restricts things, our south node. It's where we're karmically mature, but also very overly developed. So we expect perfection in the area of our Ketu south node of the chart. So therefore, Donald Trump is very uptight in his self-expression. You can tell this by the fact that he has been very consistent in his persona, in the mask that he wears. He's been wearing the same fake spray tan for decades, the same hair for decades. He talks the same. He uses the same verbiage, big, the best, great. Everything is the best. Everything is the biggest. Everybody loves me. Nobody hates me. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right. He's very fucking consistent. One of the reasons, again, why he's so powerful, like a force of nature. With the moon, like I just said, subjective experience, when you have a moon Ketu conjunction in anyone's chart, you have a person who sees the world the way that they see it, and it's very difficult for them to see it from another perspective, meaning the way that they see the world, they think that's how everybody else sees the world. And they also limit their experience, meaning because our moon also rules the emotions, he limits the emotions he's willing to feel. So there's insecurities in there, there's grief in there, there's shame and guilt in there, but he's not willing to feel those emotions. He refuses. And because he was born during an eclipse, he has a lot of power and energy to block out and repress to an extremely high degree those negative emotions he does not want to feel, like weakness, insecurity, shame, guilt. It's also in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, when you have Ketu in Sagittarius and you have the moon, which also rules our consciousness, our subjective experience, you have a hyper focus on being consistent and focusing on a goal, because Sagittarius is long-term goals. It's the long-term inspirations, the vision. Sagittarius is the archer, so he's looking at a target, he focuses on the target and lets the bow go and focuses on getting the bullseye, right? So that's what Donald Trump is all about. He's had many lifetimes where he's been focused on long-term goals and fulfilling those long-term goals. Where he's not as developed is his Rahu area, which is Gemini. Gemini is about skills, developing your skills, tools, using tools. Also, it's the twins who are polar opposites of each other. So that means pairing up with somebody that has certain skills and abilities and tools that you don't have, a balancing act, right? If you need your car fixed and you don't know how to fix your car, you go to, I was about to say plumber, you go to the shop, right? The repair shop, the car shop. You need your toilet fixed, you hire a plumber. So that's Gemini. It's hiring the right people to get the job done for things that you can't do yourself, and also developing your skills to be more proficient at succeeding in your vision. Because it's not all about aiming properly. You also have to have the skills to release the arrow, to release the bow, to shoot the arrow effectively. So this is where Donald Trump is weak. And he has his sun here. So what's the sun? Sun is masculinity. Sun is consistency. Sun also represents, our ego and our identity, but more of our identity and our soul nature. When Rahu is with the sun, Rahu, because it's the least developed area of our chart, it's the chart or the area of the chart where we're very fake. So we put on a show, a fake mask with the sign, the house, and the planets conjuncted. So with Rahu sun conjunctions, you have somebody like Donald Trump. He is the quintessential Rahu sun representation of this fake, false, thin-skinned vibrato, masculinity of I know what I'm doing, I have it all under control, I'm consistent, I'm powerful, I'm strong, and I'm solid in my being. So you have him take certain actions, like tariffs, or diplomatic positions, or saying things like, I'm going to cut spending, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that on day one. And then it doesn't actually manifest. Classic Rahu Sun, especially in men. Men with Rahu Sun conjunctions are masters at getting people to follow them because they're magnetic, because they put on this mask of power and superiority and strength, but they're not really about it. They become fickle because they're not willing to follow through on the big promises they make to other people. And then in the 11th house of gains, it's more like gains of like what could be money, could be income, but also social networks, community, society, hopes and dreams. He's very fake in the way that he maneuvers social situations and society. He's convinced a lot of people that he can make deals. He can trade with people. He's skilled in the art of the deal. But we can see that that's not the case just by looking at him close enough. Because with people, you don't want to listen to what they say. You got to observe how they move. Watch how they move through the world. And when we watch Donald Trump, it's very clear that he's putting on an act when it comes to his Gemini, his ability to communicate, to develop skills, to acquire proper teammates to help him on his path. Is it any coincidence that the people that he hires constantly turn on him because he's so egotistical, because he makes promises he can't keep, because he's so fickle, hot and cold? Also another aspect of Gemini, it can be hot or cold, it can be unpredictable, bouncing between the two sides of the polarity. So that's the main interesting point about Donald Trump is this eclipse. He was born during an eclipse. And what he needs to do is actually develop his skills, and the things that he's saying he's doing, he actually has to do. He needs to learn how to be more consistent. He needs to learn how to be a proper leader, which is also the sun, leadership, being the king, not being a false king who makes false promises, who presents himself as consistent, intelligent, and steadfast, when in reality, they're fickle-minded, insecure, and volatile, right? So he needs to develop his Gemini, his sun, and his 11th house, because also 11th house is income. The second house is wealth that we accumulate. It's almost like your bank balance, your bank account, the money you have in your bank. This is the income that comes in, the check you get every 2 weeks. And so the amount of money coming in, Donald Trump is constantly inflating the numbers, his net worth, the amount of money he has. But what's funny is that he faked it till he made it. And now he actually is bringing in a lot of wealth and abundance because of his positions of power. So remembering with the Rahu position, the North Node, we're always faking it. We're always pretending we're more competent in that area of the chart than we actually are in reality. And this is done so we can develop it. So he's actually done a decent job of developing it, but he still has a lot of work to be done, right? So what does he need to do further? What would I say to Donald Trump if he was my client, other than the things I just said? I probably would say it nicer though, if I'm being honest, especially if he was paying me a bunch of money. Full transparency. First is an ayahuasca ceremony. He would not like that because he doesn't do drugs, apparently. But yes, somebody with such a hyper masculine, false vibrato, and arrogance, ayahuasca is incredible. It will humble him. A feminine entity as powerful as Mother Ayahuasca takes no prisoners, and the more arrogant and inflated and hyper masculine you are, the more she cuts you down at the knees and gets you to bow down to the real power, which is the universe and spirit and God. So an ayahuasca ceremony would do wonders for him. He might not make it out alive. Who knows? I think he would. He is pretty strong. As much trash as I've talked in him, I'm obviously not a fan, if that shouldn't be a surprise at this point, but he's pretty tough. He's pretty strong. As much as he postures and fakes his vibrato, you don't get to that position that he's in without really having a level of perseverance that some would say is inhuman, especially at his age, which people forget how old he is. Heal generational karma. His father was a scammer. He's a scammer. It's a cycle that is continuing with him. He has not broken the cycle. His children are scamming as well. So it's kind of like this continuous cycle of being dishonest, being disingenuous, presenting themselves as something that they're not to get the abundance that they want. And ironically enough, they are really proficient at faking it because they are making it. But that's not good karmically, because that's going to have to be balanced in this incarnation or the next. It seems more so like the next incarnation or few incarnations, it doesn't really matter. God is eternal. The universe is eternal. The law of cause and effect, the universal law of karma is infinite. So the chickens will come home to roost at some point. So healing that generational karma in this incarnation is very important. This would be done through guided practices and a step-by-step process where he's going inside of himself to connect with his ancestors and the energy that has been proliferating in his family line, in his lineage. Bird bad karma from this incarnation. I wouldn't say it's impossible because nothing's impossible, but he's, for how old he is and how much bad karma he's accumulated from all the things that he's done, allegedly or not allegedly, who knows, but he has a lot of pictures of Epstein, I'll just say that. And a lot of people from his past saying he's never paid them or scammed them. So he's got a lot of bad karma. And again, he's gonna have to pay that off at some point in this lifetime or the next, most likely the next. Might as well get a head start on it, on the curriculum for next year, next lifetime. And that's also done through going inside of yourself, acknowledging the bad things he's done, making amends the best he can, taking steps, tangible steps to burn that off consciously, because you're gonna burn your bad karma one way or another. It can be unconsciously, and it seems like these fated events where all this negative tragedy, this suffering befalls you without your control, that's unconsciously burning your bad karma. Or you can do it consciously, doing penance, making amendments, doing certain types of yoga like Kriya Yoga and spiritual practices to undo that bad karma consciously, to do it quicker, and also being aware of why you're doing this work, which makes it a lot easier and more more bearable. It's a better word. Finally, developing healthy social skills, actually learning sales, not this fake vibrato sales, but developing that Gemini in a real, tangible, healthy way would be an amazing thing for him. Will he do it? No, obviously not. He's set in stone. He is who he is, and we just have to accept it. So we'll see how that unfolds on the world stage for the rest of his presidency and beyond, because we don't know what's gonna happen after that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you could relate to some of the things that I said, not saying that you're Donald Trump, but we all can relate to a certain extent with the people in the world because we're all human, then you can get a step-by-step process. If you want to heal your generational karma or burn off bad karma consciously, I have a step-by-step guide process called the Transformation Guide down below in the description. I appreciate your time. Thank you.